This is section 5.03 of the Unit 5 Notes, Insurance. Today I am, as in you are the student, comparing coverage options and rates in insurance so that I can calculate health insurance premiums, medical expenses, and life insurance premiums. I'll know I have it when I can solve problems involving the cost of health and life insurance. Specific text we're looking at for today's lesson is 4A, Analyze and compare coverage options and rates in insurance. Health insurance and life insurance. What is either one of these used for? So, life insurance protects your loved ones financially if you pass away. And health insurance protects you financially if you get sick or injured. I have two slides where we're going to go into a little bit more detail regarding these topics, but basically, life insurance is for if a death ends up happening to you, you can buy life insurance to then pay out to your relatives, your friends, or other people that you've brought into your life insurance policy, and they can use that money that gets paid out upon your death for whatever they feel that whatever they deem necessary. Now, health insurance is for ongoing things to help you pay for those medical expenses. Protects you financially if you get sick or injured. So things like as something as small as the flu to something as serious as surgery or other treatments that involve cancer or other illnesses that you may have. Health insurance is to help you financially with affording those things if they end up occurring. So, like I said, I have a couple slides that talks about both. First, we're going to look at health insurance. What does health insurance cover? I'm not going to read everything that you see here, so I'm going to exclude the things that are in parentheses just for the sake of the time in the video. But you can pause this video and read it yourself. If there is something that is a little vague, I'll expand on it just a little bit. But some things that health insurance covers: ambulatory patient services, so anything that involves ambulance, emergency services, hospitalization, pregnancy, maternity, and newborn care, mental health and substance use disorder services, including behavioral health treatment, prescription drugs, rehabilitative and habilitative services and devices, so things that kind of help you back to functioning like your normal self, laboratory services, anything that involves the laboratory to test for certain things, preventative and wellness services and chronic disease management, pediatric services, including oral and vision care. So those are some of the things that health insurance covers. They may include more depending on your policy, but that's what general health insurance covers. Now, what does life insurance cover? So again, life insurance is different from health insurance in that life insurance is upon a death of a person that has the life insurance policy taken out. There will be a payment that gets paid to whoever is under that policy. So let me read what's on the slides. Life insurance may be used to cover monthly expenses, debts, college education, and child or dependent care. There are many kinds of life insurance from term to permanent. Long-term needs life insurance can cover end-of-life expenses, estate planning, legacy funds, and long-term care. Suicide is generally not covered by life insurance within the first 2 or 3 years of the policy, and the insurance company can contest to the claim if they suspect fraud. So one of the things that ends up happening with life insurance is somebody gets a life insurance policy taken out on them and they die suddenly. There are some cases where that has happened in order for the person that's under the life insurance policy to get the payout as soon as possible. And so life insurance companies try to mitigate that, try to look out for that fraud and make sure that doesn't happen. And so suicide is one of those things that typically gets excluded from the life insurance policy because of the nature of their business. So now let's go through some problems involving health and life insurance. We're not going to go through everything, just some problems to kind of get you an idea of what goes into the calculations of these things. So we're going to go through a problem that involves calculating the health insurance premium. Again, these steps will make sense when we go through the actual problem, but just I'm going to give you a preview of what these steps are. So step one, we're going to find the percent that an individual must pay. Step two, we're going to multiply the annual premium by the percent the individual pays. Because one of the things that you will find out is that when you get a job, they offer health insurance. Now, the reason why you want to get your health insurance through your job, through your employer, is because your employer pays a percentage of that health insurance. Otherwise, you would be paying full price for the health insurance. So one of the benefits of getting a job and getting health insurance through your job, through your employer, is that they pay a part of your health insurance. So we're going to calculate what percent you, the individual, has to pay after your employer pays a certain amount. We're then going to figure out what your monthly deduction is, divide the amount individual pays by the number of pay periods. Okay, so let's look at an example. Now I'm going to cover some of this and reveal it as we go. So example one, the total annual premium for health insurance for Melissa is $6,492. Her employer pays 80% of the premium and deducts the remaining from her paycheck. Melissa is paid bi-weekly. How much is deducted from her paycheck for health insurance? So, a couple key things here is the total annual premium, how much her employer pays, which will then also tell us how much she actually has to pay, how much Melissa will have to have deducted from her paycheck, and that Melissa is paid bi-weekly. So what's the first step from all this information we just gathered? Step one, first, let's figure out the percent the individual must pay. And that's easy enough. 100% means the whole entire thing. However, we know that her employer will pay 80% of it. So we're going to take 100% and subtract what her employer pays. I can show you on the calculator, but it's very simple. It's simply taking 100%, subtracting 80, and we have that Melissa will pay 20% from her paycheck. 20%. Now, we're going to use that 20% in another calculation later, so we're going to have to change it to a decimal. And remember, moving to change from percent to decimal, we can either move the decimal to the left twice to get our answer, or we take the percent and divide it by 100, and we'll get the same exact answer. Either way, the decimal form of our number here is 0.2. Now, next step, we need to multiply the annual premium by the percent the individual pays, because this is her total premium, $6,492. However, Melissa is only going to pay 20%. So we're going to multiply 0.2 with her annual premium. So how's this going to look? Let me take out the calculator. Whoops. Here we go. So we're going to multiply $6,492 with 0.2. And we get that she will have to pay for her annual premium for the entire year, $1,298.40. $1,298.40. Now, how much will be deducted from her paycheck? Well, Melissa is paid bi-weekly. So her paycheck is paid out 26 times a year. Okay, remember, bi-weekly, weekly, semi-monthly, monthly, they all mean different things. That's how many times, in this case, you will get paid for your, how many times you will get paid for the entire year. Weekly means 52. Bi-weekly is every other week, so that cuts it in half, 26 times a year. Semi-monthly is 2 times per month, so that's 24 times a year. Monthly is 12 times a year. There are other different things you can put. Quarterly, daily, and semi-annually or whatever. That's not typical, but it's just something to consider. There are other different words to break up your pay periods, but bi-weekly means 26 times a year. So how are we going to figure out how much gets deducted from her paycheck? Take this number divided by the amount of pay periods that she has. So now, next part, divide this by bi-weekly, which is 26. Round it to 2 decimal places because we're talking about money here. This is going to be $49.94. So $49.94 will be deducted from her paycheck bi-weekly. Employer pays 80%, and she only has to pay 20%. Now, how much does and all of this gets taken out of her paycheck each time. So how much will get taken out of her paycheck? $49.94 in order to pay for her health insurance premium. And that's it for this example. Now, just to kind of further go on, if she had to pay the full $6,492 without the help of her employer, let's take that number, 6,492, divided by 26. If she wasn't employed, if she was doing this all on her own, out of pocket, her monthly payment would have to be about $249.69. So, in her case, it helps out a lot that she is getting her health insurance through her employer, because otherwise, she would be paying $250. She only has to pay $50 with her employer. Anyways, that's it for this example. So on this page, if you're following along in ClassKick, I would like for y'all to read the problem, go through the steps, and answer each individual box. And if you are on ClassKick again, you can move this box to check your answers and see if you're doing everything correctly, but only after you've tried. Let me read the problem for y'all, then go ahead and solve it on your own. The total annual premium for health insurance for Max is $8,340. His employer pays 70% of the premium and deducts the remainder from his paycheck. Max is paid weekly. How much is deducted from his paycheck for health insurance? So at this moment, go ahead and pause the video. Try this problem on your own. See if you can figure it out. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So his total annual premium is $8,340. 70% is paid by the employer, and we will deduct the remainder from his paycheck. Max is paid weekly. How much is deducted from his paycheck for the health insurance? So first step, we need to figure out how much Max is paying for health insurance. Well, since we know the employer is paying 70%, 100 minus 70 is 30%. So we know Max has to pay up 30% to afford, has to have 30% of this annual premium deducted from his paycheck, which as a decimal is 0.3. Again, you can move the decimal point to the left 2 times or divide it by 100. You will get the same answer. Just to show y'all on the calculator, 30 divided by 100. There you go, 0.3. Now, to figure out what he will have to pay, we're going to multiply 0.3 with the annual premium. So the annual premium was $8,340. We're going to multiply that with 0.3. So 0.3 times 8,340 is 2,502. Now, to find out how much he will have to pay or have deducted from his paycheck, we divide that by the amount of pay periods. So 2,502 divided by whatever number that is. Well, we know it's weekly. Weekly means there are 52 weeks within a year, which means he's going to get paid 52 times throughout the year. So we're going to divide this by 52. Again, 2,502 divided by 52, and we get about $48.12. $48.12. that gets automatically deducted from his paycheck to pay for the health insurance. And let me make sure that's the correct answer. It is. There we go. That's it for you. Try number 1. Okay, now we're going to go through another type of problem that involves deductibles. So let's say you're going to pay for a service. Depending on the policy that you're in, the health insurance policy that you're in, some of them will involve copay, some of them will involve deductibles. It depends on what you chose. So we're going to go through a problem that involves deductibles. What is a deductible? It's what you have to pay before health insurance covers a portion, and then you pay the rest. So we'll explain more when we get into the problem, but that's the basic idea of it. Step 1, so I'm going to read through the steps. Again, we'll find out more when we go through the problem, but here is the steps before we do the problem. Step 1, we're going to find the percent that the individual must pay. The percent individual pays equals 100% minus percent company pays. And then we're going to subtract the amount of the deductible from the cost of the service. We're going to multiply the amount left to pay by the percent the individual pays. And then we're going to find the total amount the individual pays. So again, we're going to go through these steps when we go through the problem itself. Okay, so here is an example. Let me cover this, and then, like I said, like I said in the previous problem, we will reveal it as we go. Dan's insurance company pays for 80% of the cost of an ambulance ride after he pays $200 deductible. The ambulance ride cost $1,575. How much will Dan pay for the ambulance ride? So, again, what do we do with all this information? We know that 80% of the cost of the ambulance ride is what the insurance will pay, which means Dan will cover 20% of it. But it's only after he pays $200, and then he will cover the rest. So the ambulance ride costs $1,575, and then let's figure out what he will do. So what's our first step in this case? Find the percent the individual must pay, which will be 100% minus whatever percent the company pays, which we know is 80%. So if you don't know how to do this, just simply type it into the calculator, 100 minus 80, and we know that Dan will have to pay 20%. Which, if we turn into a decimal, like in our previous problem, this is 0.2. How do you turn it into a decimal? Move the decimal point to the left twice, and then you'll restate it as 0.2, or divide the 20% by 100 to change it from percent to decimal. And there we go. Next step, subtract the amount of the deductible from the cost of the ambulance ride. Because notice the words here. Notice the verbiage. Dan's insurance company pays for 80% of the cost of the ambulance ride after he pays a $200 deductible. So the first thing we have to do before we calculate the rest is take $200 off from the ambulance ride. So we're going to subtract 200 from 1575. 1575 minus 200 will be $1,375. And there we go. Okay. Now, once the deductible has been met, the insurance will cover 80% of it, and then Dan will only be responsible for 20% of it. So now here's where our percentage comes into play. So now we're going to multiply the amount left to pay by the percent the individual pays. The individual, Dan in this case, pays 20%. So we're going to multiply this by 20%. So times 0.2. And we have $275. So Dan will have to pay $275. Okay. Now, what is the total amount? Because this is $275 that he has to pay for the ambulance. But we want to know what Dan had to pay in total, because there was a $200 deductible that he essentially had to pay before the ambulance ride, or before we calculated the ambulance ride. So what do? We add those two things together, the deductible and what he had to pay for the ambulance ride. So $275 plus the $200 deductible, we have $475 that he will have to pay for this ambulance ride. And that's it. That's it for example number 2. Just to reiterate, again, we found what Dan had to pay in the percentage. We had to find after the deductible what the ambulance ride cost, calculate Dan's portion, and then to find what Dan had to pay in total, take Dan's portion, add the deductible, and there we go. There's our total. Okay. Now, you try number 2. If you're following along in the Class Kick notes, I would like for y'all to go through this problem on your own. You go through steps 1 through 4. Fill in the blanks. See if you could figure out what to do for each of these steps. If you need help, either look at the previous problem or you could look behind this box to check your work, see if you're doing the steps correctly, only after you've tried though. Let me read the problem for you and then go ahead and get started. Tim's insurance company pays for 90% of the cost of an ambulance ride after he pays a $250 deductible. The ambulance ride costs $1,500. How much would Tim pay for an ambulance ride? So, at this moment, I would like for y'all to pause the video, go through the steps, and see if you could get the final answer for this problem. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. Okay, so some important things to note here. The company pays 90% of the cost. Tim will pay $250 deductible, and then insurance will cover 90% of it. Ambulance ride in total costs $1,500. How much will Tim pay for this ambulance ride? First, step 1, let's figure out what Tim has to pay. If the company will pay 90% of it, well, subtract 90 from 100%. We know Tim will be responsible for 10% of it. Now, what is 10% as a decimal? Either move the decimal point to the left twice or divide by 100, and we get 0.1. So just to show y'all, 10 divided by 100, there we go, 0.1. Now, there's a deductible involved. So once the deductible is met, the insurance will come in and pay 90% of it, and then Tim will be responsible for 10%. So the cost of the ambulance ride needs to have the deductible subtracted. So that's $1,500 minus $250, which will be $1,250, which I'll show in the calculator, but should be $1,250. There we go, $1,250. So now that the deductible has been paid, insurance will cover 90% of it, and Tim will cover 10% of it. So let's figure out what Tim will have to pay. Now we're going to multiply the amount that's left to pay times what he is responsible for, which is 10%, 0.1. And I think that'll be 125, but let's check. So multiply this by 0.1, 125, right? Okay, so this is what Tim is responsible for. The insurance company pays 90% of it, and Tim only has to pay 10%, which 10% is $125. Now, let's figure out what Tim has to pay altogether. Tim has to pay $125 plus the $250 deductible from earlier, which if you add those together should be $375. Let's check just to make sure. So 125 plus 250 is 375. Now let's check back here. Yep, there we go. $375. That's what Tim will have to pay for this ambulance ride. And that's it. That's the final answer for you try number 2. So the previous problem that we just looked at involved deductibles. What we're fixing to go through now is something called copay, and copay is calculated a little bit differently. Okay. So how are copays different from deductibles? Copay, there's a fee that you have to pay no matter what, and then after that fee gets paid, insurance will cover a portion, and then you cover the rest. Whereas deductibles, you have to pay a certain amount out of pocket first, and then once that deductible is met, insurance will cover a portion, and then you cover the rest. So this is different in that copay, there's a standard fee that stays the same no matter what. And it's usually smaller than a deductible. It depends on the plans that you have, but anyways, so let's go through the steps of calculating copay. Step one, we're going to find the percent that the individual must pay, so very similar to some of the previous problems we've done. And then we're going to multiply the amount of the service provided by the percent the individual pays. And then we're going to find the total amount the individual pays, which is the amount plus the copay. Let's look at an example. So Jason must pay a copay of $50 for an office visit. His insurance company will pay 90% of the cost of the visit. How much will Jason pay for the office visit that costs $645? So first off, what is Jason responsible for? Step one, find the percent that the individual must pay. Percent the individual pays equals 100%, which is 100% minus what the company pays, which is 90. We've done this before, but I'll go through it again. 100 minus 90 is 10%. Then change that into a decimal by either moving the decimal point to the left twice or dividing it by 100. Either way, 0.1 is the decimal form that he will be using, or that he will be paying, 10%. Okay, now 10% of the office visit, $645. So there's no deductible, there's nothing we have to subtract. We're automatically going straight into 10% of what he has to pay. So we're going to multiply 645 by 10%, which is 0.1 in decimal form, which is $64.50. Now, from here, we want to figure out what Jason will pay in total, because there's another thing that we haven't put into our calculations yet, and that's the $50 copay. So $64.50 he will pay for the office visit plus the copay. So in total, I'm going to add $50 to this. In total, he will pay $114.50 for this office visit with copay. Now, if he were to have done this with a deductible, for example, a $250 deductible, he would have to pay $250 and then take 10% of it. Copay, we're just doing a fee, a flat fee, and then 10% of whatever the value is. Okay, so that's how copay and deductibles are different. And that's it. That's it for example number 3. Let's move on to the you try now. Again, if you're following along in ClassKick, I want y'all to go through the problem and see if you can figure it out on your own. And then I believe on the next slide, on page 23, you can move this box to see if you're doing all the steps correctly. So let me read through the problem, and then if you would like, please pause the video and try this on your own. Jane must pay a copay of $20 for an office visit. Her insurance company will then pay 80% of the cost of the visit. How much will Jane pay for an office visit that costs $800? So at this moment, go ahead and pause the video, try this problem on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. Okay, so copay is $20. insurance company will then pay 80%. And then we want to know how much Jane will pay for an office visit that costs $800. First off, step one, what percentage does Jane have to pay? We know the insurance company pays 80%. So 100 minus 80 is 20%, which as a decimal is 0.2. Move the decimal point to the left twice to get to change from percent to decimal, or divide the decimal by 100, or I'm sorry, the percentage by 100 to then get the decimal of 0.2. So now we're going to multiply that decimal with the cost of the office visit. So 800 times 0.2. Which will be $160. So Jane is responsible for $160. 20% of 800, which is what her responsibility is. Now, to get the total amount that she has to pay, remember there is a $20 copay, a $20 flat fee, in addition to paying 20% of the cost. So this is 160 plus 20, which will total to be $180. Now I'm going to show you on the calculator just in case. I'm going to add 20 to it, and her what she has to pay for that visit is $180. And that's it. That's the final answer for example, or I'm sorry, you try number 3. Okay, so now we're going to move away from health insurance problems. We're going to look at some problems that involve life insurance policies, life insurance premiums, starting with calculating life insurance annual premiums. So, like with the previous problems, I'm going to show you how to do this and then actually break it down as we go through one of the example problems. So, to calculate the annual premium, the amount of insurance policy, whatever it is, we're going to divide it by 1,000 and then multiply it by the annual premium per 1,000. This is just one of the ways that life insurance premiums can be calculated. Again, this is not going over the exact way that everybody does it. This is just one of the ways that can be calculated. So the reason why we're doing it this way is because we're going to be using a chart that has it broken down by the age of males and females, 20 to 24 for males, 23 to 27 for females, and then you can see the different age ranges for each one of these columns. We also have the policy taken out for something that's only for 10 years and something for 20 years. You can see the two different prices for this. And then this is the annual premium per $1,000 of coverage. Hence why we have to divide whatever amount we're taking by 1,000, and then whatever we find on the chart, we're going to multiply that result by that. So again, how do we apply this to an actual problem? Let's go to example number 4 now. Now I'm going to cover this and then reveal it as we go. So Ruby, a 40-year-old female, let me underline that a little bit better, bought a $150,000 20-year life insurance policy. What is Ruby's annual premium? So we're going to see how much she has to pay for the entire year. And again, this is a fake company, ABC Term Life Insurance. This is just an example of what we will be what people will be doing to calculate your life insurance policy. If you decide to take one out. This is not always what it's how you do it, but this is just a look into how these things are done. Okay, so they figure this out through some different type of math, and it gets put into a chart. But anyways. So first thing we need to do is we're going to take this piece by piece. We're going to do the first two right here, and then we're going to multiply this last part. So we know that this life insurance policy is $150,000. So we need to divide this by 1,000, especially because the chart here will show us how much is getting covered per $1,000. So that means we have to divide that insurance premium by 1,000. Now there is a shortcut. There's 3 zeros here, 3 zeros there. We just mark those out, and we have 150 thousands that are being covered. Or you can just look to your calculator. 150,000 divided by 1,000, which will turn into 150. So we have 150 thousands that will be covered in this life insurance premium. Now, we need to figure out how much is being covered per 1,000 on this chart over here on the left. So we know that Ruby, which is a 40-year-old female, this is a 20-year life insurance policy that's being taken out. So we're going to go here. Per 1,000 covered, it's going to cost her $10.33. So we're going to multiply this value by $10.33. So again, 150 times 10.33, and annually it's going to cost her $1,549.50. $1,549.50. And you could do all this in one go too. You don't have to just do it piece by piece like I did. I just did it that way to break down what's going on with this problem. So again, you could just do this all in one go. And you'll come to the same conclusion, same result. Either way, this is how much she owes for life insurance per year to take out this life insurance policy. And that's it. That's it for example 4. Now let's move on to try number 4. Again, if you're on ClassKick, I would like for you now to try this problem on your own. Look at the chart, figure out what type of coverage a 37-year-old male will need per $1,000 of coverage. And then you're going to put it all into the calculator and get your result. Move this box right here to check to see if you're doing everything correctly. Let me read the problem for y'all, and then you can go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. Ron, a 37-year-old male, bought $160,000 10-year life insurance policy. What is Ron's annual premium? So at this moment, go ahead, pause the video, try this problem on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So a 37-year-old male bought $160,000 of a 10-year life insurance policy. What is his annual premium? So how do we calculate this? First, let's look at what Ron has to do, or what Ron's coverage will be based on his age and the year the policy is taken out for. So 37-year-old male will be right here. And notice how 37-year-old male and 37-year-old female are in two different rows. So again, pay close attention to whether this person is male or female. We're taking this out for 10 years. And so when we look on the chart what his coverage will be, it will be $4.55 per $1,000 covered. So now we're going to multiply this, or we're going to divide and multiply this all together. We're going to take 160,000, divide this by 1,000, and then multiply by what he has to pay per 1,000, which is $4.55. We could do this all in one go. 160,000, too many zeros, divided by 1,000 times $4.50. I'm sorry, 55 cents, which will be $728. So this is how much he will have to pay per year for this life insurance policy. That's it for you try number 4. Okay, so another life insurance policy problem. We're going to look now at how much has to get deducted from your paycheck. How do we calculate that type of problem? So there's 2 ways that you can get it deducted from your paycheck. One, if you have elected to have it deducted from your paycheck at a certain time of the month through that life insurance policy. Or if you're getting life insurance through your employer, it'll automatically become deducted from your paycheck. So to figure out how much is deducted from the paycheck, we're going to, just like in the previous problem, take the amount of the insurance policy divided by 1,000 because of the type of chart we're dealing with. If this said annual premium per $100 of coverage, we would divide by 100. If this said annual premium per $10,000 of coverage, we would divide by 10,000. The only reason why we're dividing by 1,000 is because that's what the chart says you're getting covered for per $1,000. So anyways, divide by 1,000, multiply by the annual premium per 1,000 based on the age, the sex, and the length of the insurance policy, the life insurance policy. And then the last thing we're going to do is divide by the amount of pay periods. If you get paid weekly, we're going to divide by 52. Semi-monthly, we're going to divide by 24, and so on and so forth. So we can figure out how much gets divided per paycheck. Okay, so let's look at this example now. Jackson, a 35-year-old male, bought a $100,000 10-year life insurance policy. Jackson is paid semi-monthly. How much is deducted for each of his paychecks for life insurance? So what do? How do we figure this out? Well, first thing we could do is where on the chart what his policy will be per $1,000 of coverage. Well, we know this guy is a 35-year-old male, so right here, and this is a 10-year life insurance policy. So on the chart, he will have to pay $4.55 per $1,000 covered. So that will get factored in to our calculations. $100,000 divided by 1,000 because of the chart, and then multiply with $4.55 based on his information. Now the next thing is to, just to do this piece by piece, let me do this here. This is very similar to what we did in the previous problem. So we have $100,000 divided by 1,000 multiplied with $4.55, which is $455 that he will owe annually. Now, we want to know how much he has to will get deducted from his paycheck. This is where the next part comes in. Semi-monthly. What does semi-monthly mean? It means that he gets paid 24 times a year. So what's the next step after this? To figure out what he gets paid per paycheck, we're going to divide by 24. So divide 455 divided by 24. And each paycheck, he will have $18.96, if we round it to 2 decimal places, deducted from his paycheck. Again, $18.96 will be deducted from his paycheck. We can, and also just to show y'all, we can do all this in one go. We don't have to do it piece by piece like I just showed y'all. 100,000 divided by 1,000 times 4.55 divided by 24. And we get 18.96. How much money he will get deducted per paycheck to pay for the life insurance that he took out. And that's it for example number 5. Now moving on to the last you try. Go through this problem on your own. If you're following along in the class kick notes, see if you can figure this out on your own. Fill out the blanks and then move this box to check your work to see if you're doing everything correctly. Let me read through the problem and then you can go ahead and pause the video and try this on your own. Janice, a 45-year-old female, bought $120,000 20-year life insurance policy. Janice is paid bi-weekly. How much is deducted from each of her paychecks for life insurance? So, again, pause this video, try this problem on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to continue on and show y'all how to do this. So we have a 45-year-old female that bought $120,000 20-year life insurance policy. We know Janice is paid bi-weekly. So how much will be deducted from her paycheck for life insurance? 45-year-old female, let me do this here. So 45-year-old will be right here between 43 and 47, according to this chart. That shows us the coverage per $1,000 based on your gender, sex, and the years that you're taking out for the life insurance policy. Which we said this was a 20-year policy. So, zooming in on how much is going to get covered. $13.68 per $1,000 of coverage. So we're going to use that in our calculations. We're going to take the amount, which was $120,000, divided by 1,000, multiply with 13.68. And then the last thing we need to figure out is the amount of pay periods from the paycheck. How many pay periods, how much she gets paid throughout the year, which she said was bi-weekly. So bi-weekly means 26. That means we're going to divide this by 26. So now plug all this in to the calculator. $120,000 divided by 1,000 times 13.68. And then divide this by 26. Rounded to 2 decimal places, we have $63.14 that she will have to pay per paycheck, or will have deducted from her paycheck every time. $63.14. And that is the answer. That's it for you try number 5. So that's it for section 5.03. If y'all have any questions, let me know, or let your teacher know if you're watching from a different class. Try to work through the problems, rewatch the parts, the questions, the video, whatever, as many times as possible to try and practice these types of problems. Feel free to use these on your quizzes, on your tests, the notes, the video, whatever, so that you can understand the steps on how to solve these. Okay, so that's all I got. I will see y'all in the next video.